G'day, this is David Hughes from Zero Bubble Model Design. What I'm doing now is I'm creating a video that shows you how to disassemble the stern end cap of a ZB1 or a ZB12, which is the twin shaft single motor unit that you see here. Now this is a test model of the newest design that I have for the ZB12 back end. It's got a smaller gearbox housing. It's easy to get through. The bolts, the nuts and the bolts are just easy to access. And the unit is simply easier to align. It's easier to get waterproof, and it's easier to maintain and run and seal. So what I'm doing today is I'm basically taking you through how to disassemble the back end if there is a problem with needing to check for leaks, or if there's a problem with gears or the motor needs replacing. Anything that needs replacing. I've designed these units to be highly serviceable. I've designed them so that you can fix any problem that you get yourself, and you can be confident doing that. So let's get started on this. The first thing you need to do is, obviously, I've got some sample push rods here, and I'm just going to pull these push rods out. I'm just going to pull them out. They're just sample ones I use for testing. As I said, this is actually a prototype unit, so it's a little bit messy at the moment. But it still serves to show you what I need to show you. Now, we've got our actual seal housings here. These seal housings have been shortened, but directly under this outer cap here is the actual cup seal. It's pressed inside. If you've done a pressure test where you blow air into the unit and you get bubbles coming from here, then all you need to do is take either of these two units off depending on where the bubbles are going. So you take these off depending on where the bubbles are going, and check the O-ring, the cup seal inside, to see if there's damage to the lip around the 6mm shaft, or if the water is getting around the side of the cup seal. It means that if there's a problem, if there's a leak occurring here, you just need to take these off and don't need to take the whole rest of the unit off. If there's a mechanical problem with the gears, or the motor needs replacing or something like that, then you take the whole unit off. But if you just need to take these off, it's really simple. All you need to do, they're held on by silicone. So silicone is placed here, here, and all around here, with the assistance of, obviously, the two stainless steel bolts that hold the main gearbox housing onto the end cap. So what I do to take this off, it's actually really simple. What I do is I want to just check the seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a knife, just your common variety Stanley knife, and I'm just going to run around that rim like so. Run it around there. And what you're doing is you're basically just breaking the silicone seal. I'll talk about what silicone I use in a minute, but I'm basically just getting a knife and I'm breaking that free, and then this should just pull out. Either way, if you can't pull that off, you can simply take the whole unit off by cutting it with silicone around the base here like so. Get the knife under, run it around in a rim. You're not going to do any damage to anything inside because it's just breaking the silicone seal. And then what happens is this should actually just twist off. You should be able to twist that off quite easily. And then once you do that, that's what you want to pull off. You've got a rim here. The new design features this rim here. And here you've got the brass oil light bush. You've got the oil light bush there. You've got this rim around here, and that's just silicone around there. And there's a bit of water in there, so I need to check that. Here you've got your actual seal. You can see you've got all the silicone. You've got all the silicone around here, and you've got your cup seal on the side. I actually put a tiny bit of silicone around the rim of the cup seal so that water doesn't go around the outside of the cup seal to get in. I mean, ideally, the only place where it should be leaking is actually through the lip. Maybe there's a tiny perforation on the lip where it meets the brass bush. That's the only place it should be leaking. So if you reckon you have an issue with the cup seal, all you need to do now is basically just push on the inside, and you should be able to pull the cup seal out for replacing. So there's my cup seal. And it basically it's just a press fit that fits inside. Obviously, you will need to scoop out all your silicone inside. Clean that out. You can, as I've said, score a knife around here and this part will pull off, and that will then make it easier to replace the cup seal. All the parts that you need to replace any part of the back end are in the instruction manual. I give you the serial number and I also give you the manufacturer for the cup seal and also the gears and the oil light bushes inside the actual gear unit. The gears that are here, the oil light bushes, the ones that mount here, and also the ones that seat in the back end, and also the screws that hold the motor on and the motor. So they're all in the instruction manual at the back, all the serial numbers, the companies. You can all get the information from there, and they're easily available, so you can easily get those. So as I said, if you want to actually, the best thing to do would be to remove this bit here, pull that off, and then replace the cup seal in there. If you know that your cup seals are fine and you have an issue with the gearbox, either the shafts are binding, there's too much friction, there's something wrong inside, you just need to replace the motor, then you can actually leave these cup seal housings, the actual sealing housings on, and just disassemble the main unit at the back here. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to loosen these nuts here. So what I'm going to do is these stainless 6mm nuts, simply just get a pair of pliers and just loosen these to the point where you can, just with thumb pressure, unscrew that nut. Do that one, and then do the same here with this one here. There might be silicone around. There's a lot of silicone everywhere. Silicone is a model Submariner's best friend. So you just need to unscrew that nut, and as you can see, it's coming off pretty easily. These two 6mm bolts are bolted through at the back. You can see one just down here, and the other one is of course up here. They have silicone on the back of those to keep them in place and also to waterproof from the back end. What I now do is I just basically drop those nuts off, get them off. This one needs a little bit more work, but ultimately that should come off really nicely like so. And then once again, just like with the top seals, I need to grab a Stanley knife and I basically just carefully press in, and don't go too far in because you don't want to hit the gears, but you can run your knife around inside, go in about 1mm or 2mm. Run, obviously need to go past the bolt, but carefully run your way along, and all you are doing is just prying the silicone. All you're doing is just splitting the silicone seal. That's all you're doing. So move that along like so. Make sure you go all the way around. So I've run my knife all the way around the rim, the base of the gearbox, all the way around past the two pushrod couplings, pushrod seals I should say, around the top bolt, around the bottom bolt. Now it's just simply a case of carefully pulling the top off like so. And here you have your two large gears. You also have a series of washers in the more modern units. And here we have our two bottom oil light bushes that hold the base of the 6mm shafts on the back of the gears. And you have your motor here. Here's your RS380SH motor with the tiny little pinion gear. And as you can see, there's a fair bit of silicone. So what you need to do is just spend a bit of time scraping off the silicon, get the silicon off, get it clean on both faces. This face here, but also you'll need to do a bit of cleaning around this face here. Scrub all the silicon off, get it off. The shafts, if you need to replace one of the gears, the shafts are a 6mm stainless steel shaft with a milled flat, obviously, for the coupling at this end here. This gear that you see here is the serial number for that is given in the instruction manual at the table at the back, and that's usually through a company, I think Sprockets and Gears in England, and the serial number that you need for that is in the instruction manual. I've drilled a small 2mm hole that goes through, and there's a little brass pin that I use to lock that. If you need to replace this, you'll need to pull that pin out. Push it out and then pull it with pliers. Pull it with pliers, pull that pin out, replace the gear, push the pin back in. That basically just locks that gear so that it can't come out. These bushings here have been siliconed. I put a tiny bit of silicon on the bottom and I press them in really just to embed them, like so. And I also do the same for the little oilite bush, flange bush here. I put a bit of silicon around the rim and I press it down, and you can just see the top of it there. Okay, they silicon those as an extra barrier to waterproofing, but the gears should still move freely. And as you can see, there's a fair bit of gunk from the silicon that I need to get rid of there, but that's there. Clear up the 2 bolt holes here and here, and you've got that unit cleared up. To replace the motor, if you need to replace the motor is basically bolted in using 2 really small 2.6mm hex bolts. They're tiny. At the moment, they're covered with silicon. There's silicon here, there's silicon here. Water shouldn't get through anywhere except the only place that water should be able to penetrate is through the cup seal, but I silicon everything. So what you need to do is you need to basically scrape off the silicon here, scrape off the silicon here, get a hex nut, a hex Allen key, and simply unscrew these little screws, like so. Unscrew these little bolts, one there, and then the motor should simply pull out the back. The motor has 2 tiny little holes that are for 2.6mm bolts, and they're what we use. We basically push the motor in the back, push these tiny little screws in, bolts in, and then just with the Allen key, we tighten them back into place, and then we silicon over the top of those bolts, making sure it's secure. If you need to get the pinion gear off, if this pinion gear needs to come off, how you get that off is you simply, once the motor comes out, you place a pair of pliers in between the pinion gear and the base of the motor, and you simply auger it off. Carefully pull it off, and then to put it on a new motor, I simply press the shaft of the motor on top, and with a hammer I tap the back end of the motor, and it presses it down into the pinion gear. That pinion gear is a very tight fit over the shaft. Okay, so what you need to do, once you've replaced the part, and as I said, all the parts are serial numbered in the instruction manual that comes with the unit, so you can buy those serial parts, you can buy all those parts yourself, the bushes, all the gears, and the cup seals. All you then need to do is reverse the process to reassemble it. To assemble it, I use an RTV silicon, clear silicon sealant, silicon RTV. It smells like vinegar. I use the clear stuff. You can use any color you want, and you simply reverse the process. So what I need to do here is I need to simply place my little washers there. I have washers in between the units, in between the back bushes and the gear. I place the gear like so. I then get silicone, and I silicone bead all around here. Not too much, because you don't want it to squish over there and jam up the gears here. The gears are pretty close, particularly around this part here, are pretty close to the outside. So you want to go easy. What you want to do is you want to seal it up and then run a rim of silicone after you've actually sealed it up. But you do need to have a thin bead of silicone going all the way around here. Make sure you've got silicone around your bolts. So you want a reasonable amount, but not too much that it goes in and squishes and interferes with your gears. So then what you do, once you've cleaned that unit up and you've got your silicone bead around the outside, you can then, oops, I've got this over the wrong one. Place it there like that. I should now be able to drop this unit back over, making sure that washer is in the right spot. And I should now be able to press this unit down, wiggle it into place like so, and then you can press fit that. Do the bolts back up, do them up tightly. Silicone once again around the outside, all the way around, making sure that you get in here. Put a bit dab of silicone over your two stainless bolts, put your nut down, tighten them up. Make sure, however, that the units, the shafts still turn nice and freely, like you see here. And then once again, this unit with the cup seal placed back in the housing simply presses down, and you need to run a bead around the outside here. Run a bead around the outside, press it down, and then actually just rotate a little bit. Let that set, let that glue for probably an hour or so. Let the silicone dry. I often wipe around the outside here, and then I get a little bit more silicone on my finger, and I just sort of press it firmly against that seal all around to make sure it's sealed, make sure it's firm, the bolts are secure, and that should be what you need to service and change any component in your ZB back end. I hope this video has been helpful. This is David Hughes from Zero Bubble Model Design.